Somewhere tonight, a company is paying real money for a person who was never there. A view that no eye ever saw. A click that no finger ever made. An audience assembled entirely out of machines pretending to be a crowd. This happens at a scale hard to hold in your head. Billions of tiny transactions a day, each resting on a single fragile assumption that on the other end of the ad is a human being who might, just possibly, be paying attention. An enormous amount of that attention is fake. And so a whole hidden counter-industry has grown up around one strange job: to tell a real glance from a phantom one and to claw back the money that fake traffic quietly drains away. This is the story of how the ad world hunts the ghosts eating its budget. The money problem starts with how the money actually moves, because that is where the whole problem is born. Advertisers do not usually pay a flat fee to be seen. They pay per impression, a fraction of a cent every time an ad loads on a page, or per click, a larger amount every time someone supposedly taps through to their site. Multiply those tiny amounts across the entire internet and you get one of the largest markets on earth. And buried inside every one of those payments is an assumption. A real person on the other end who loaded the page and did the clicking. The moment a machine can manufacture an impression or a click that looks real enough to bill for, it can print money out of thin air, one fraction of a cent at a time. And because the amounts are so small, nobody notices a single fake. The fraud hides inside the sheer volume of ordinary traffic, which is what makes it so lucrative and so hard to see. What counts as fake? The industry has a deliberately dry name for all of this: invalid traffic, and the dryness hides how strange the catalog really is. At the simple end are bots, programs that load pages and ad slots over and over, generating impressions for an audience of nobody. But a lot of invalid traffic is sneakier than a crude robot. An ad can be served and technically loaded while sitting hidden behind other content, billed as seen while no human ever could. An ad can be shrunk down to a single pixel, one dot in a corner, real by the letter of the rules and invisible in practice. Dozens of ads can be stacked in one spot, each counting as a separate impression, while only the top one, if any, is ever visible. Then there are the clicks with no human behind them, and the low-quality farm traffic bought in bulk to pad the numbers. It is a whole taxonomy of ways to charge for attention that was never actually paid. Photodindithitium, phantom audience. Picture the thing actually being sold. An impression is not a person, it is a record, a line in a log, that says an ad was delivered to a slot at a moment in time. That record is what gets counted, and what gets counted is what gets paid. So the entire game, for anyone building fake traffic, is to produce convincing records that look exactly like the ones a real audience leaves behind. A farm of machines can generate a phantom audience of millions, each one loading pages and leaving a neat trail of impressions that flows into the very same billing systems as everyone else. The money does not care whether the audience was real, it follows the records. The hunters are not really looking for bad people. They are looking for records that lie. The leak, and the money that pours into those lying records has to come from somewhere, so follow the leak. An advertiser sets a budget to reach humans. A chain of middlemen, exchanges and networks and resellers, passes that budget along toward whoever can supply the traffic. At every hop, a fake impression looks identical to a real one. So fraudulent supply competes directly with honest supply, often winning because it can be manufactured in unlimited quantity at almost no cost. A meaningful slice of every advertising dollar drains away into traffic no person ever witnessed. Money meant to reach an audience that instead reaches a server farm. Nobody sends an invoice that says fraud, it simply disappears into the plumbing. It is a steady structural loss baked into a system that pays for records and trusts them to be true. The tells. So how do the hunters find fakes hiding inside legitimate-looking traffic? They look for tells, the small ways a machine fails to imitate a human. A real person browsing leaves a messy organic trail. They move the mouse in imperfect curves. They pause, they scroll partway and stop. They hesitate before clicking. A bot, especially a cheap one, is either too clean or too strange. It clicks with inhuman speed and precision, or it never moves the pointer at all. It loads a page and never scrolls, never lingers, never does the aimless things people do. Its engagement can be statistically impossible. A click-through rate no real audience has ever produced. 1,000 visitors behaving in eerie lockstep. It arrives from addresses that belong to data centers rather than homes and phones. A crowd all burst in from the same warehouse, and it often carries known signatures, patterns the detectors have catalogued from catching the same tools before. No single tell is proof. Together they build a picture. Viewability, one of the sharpest questions the hunters ask, is simple. Could a human eye ever actually have had the chance to see this ad? It is called viewability, and it exists because so much fraud lives in ads that were technically served but never truly visible. Detectors measure whether an ad rendered inside the part of the screen a person was looking at, whether enough of it was on screen, and for long enough that a real viewer could have registered it. An ad loaded behind another page fails. An ad shrunk to a single pixel fails. An ad stacked beneath 5 others fails. An ad that flickered on a page nobody scrolled to fails. Viewability does not prove a human was present, but it rules out the impressions no human could possibly have seen, and that alone strips away a huge amount of manufactured inventory. It turns the vague idea of a view into something measurable. The difference between an ad that was merely delivered and an ad that stood a real chance of being seen. The honeypot ad. Then there are the traps, the cleverest part of the whole hunt. A detector can plant something on a page that a human would never touch, but an automated program, blindly interacting with everything it finds, will trigger an ad slot placed where no person would ever see it, so any interaction with it must be a machine. An invisible element, a bait link hidden from human eyes but perfectly plain to a script reading the code. A real visitor sails right past, never knowing it was there. A bot, unable to tell the difference between what is shown and what is hidden, blunders straight into it and gives itself away. These honeypots do not just filter one impression, they identify the source, letting the hunters recognize that same automated visitor everywhere else it goes. The trap catches the machine by exploiting the one thing it cannot do, actually look at the page the way a person does. The referees. None of this would hold together without someone to keep the score honest, because the people measuring fraud often have a stake in the answer. So a layer of independent measurement and accreditation sits on top. Bodies whose job is to audit the auditors. They set the technical definitions, how much of an ad must be on screen and for how long, what qualifies as invalid, how detection itself is tested. They accredit the companies that do the measuring, checking that a firm claiming to catch fraud actually catches it by an agreed standard rather than its own convenient one. The point is to give buyers and sellers a shared language. So a view means roughly the same thing whether you are the advertiser paying or the publisher being paid. It is the closest thing this world has to a referee, an attempt to anchor a market that would otherwise drown in everyone grading their own homework. The arms race. But a referee does not end the contest, it only sets the field, and the contest never stops. Every time the hunters learn a tell, the makers of fake traffic study it and smooth it away. Detectors notice bots that never move the mouse, so the next generation learns to wiggle the pointer in lifelike curves. Detectors flag data center addresses, so the traffic reroutes through ordinary-looking homes and phones to disguise where it really comes from. And the hunters adapt straight back, reaching for subtler signals the imitators have not thought to fake yet. The detectors can never declare victory, because the moment a method becomes reliable, it becomes a specification for the fraud to defeat. The best anyone honestly claims is to stay a step ahead, and to make faking expensive enough that it stops being worth the trouble. The defense is, so what does the industry actually do with all this hunting, beyond naming the problem? The defenses come in layers. Some happen before the money moves, filtering traffic in the split second before an ad is bought, so that supply flagged as invalid is simply never paid for. Some happen afterward, where impressions are re-examined and fraudulent ones are clawed back, the charges reversed, the money returned. There are shared block lists of known bad sources, so a fraudster caught in one place is shut out of many. There are quality scores that quietly starve suspicious supply of budget over time, and underneath it all is the simple discipline of not counting what cannot be verified, of treating an unproven impression as worthless until it earns some trust. None of these defenses is complete on its own, and each filters a different slice of the problem. Stacked together, though, they turn fraud from a free lunch into a running battle, one where a real share of the fakes get caught, discounted or refunded before they can quietly walk off with the budget. The double-edged, and here is where honesty demands the harder half of the story, because detection is not a clean win. It is imperfect, and it is adversarial, and its mistakes cost real people. Every filter that blocks fake traffic can also block real traffic by accident, and when it does, it starves a legitimate publisher of money they genuinely earned, punishing a real audience for the crime of looking through a nervous system, a little too good to be true. Overblock too hard and you strangle honest sites that live on ad revenue? Underblock and you wave the fraud through. Worse, almost everyone here has a reason to define the word real in their own favor. A network selling traffic wants the loosest definition of valid. A fraud detection firm needs just enough fraud to prove its worth. An advertiser wants numbers that flatter the campaign. So the very measurement of what is fake becomes a fog of claim and counterclaim. Competing vendors reporting wildly different fraud rates for the exact same traffic, each with a business reason for its number. The hunt for fake attention is real and necessary, but it happens inside a hall of mirrors where no one can be fully trusted to hold the ruler. What it is really about. So here is the thing to sit with once the mechanics fade. Underneath the entire advertising economy is a quiet, almost philosophical problem. How do you prove that attention happened at all? A view, a click, a glance, an interest. These are human things, and the internet only ever sees their shadows, the records left behind. Fraud is the art of forging those shadows, and detection is the art of telling a true shadow from a forged one, forever, at a scale of billions a day, with money riding on every single guess, and never truly settled, because the moment you define what a real view looks like, you have handed the forgers the blueprint. The fake views draining the ad world's money are not a glitch waiting to be patched. They are the permanent price of building an economy on a thing you cannot directly see, and can only ever infer. The hunters are not chasing a bug. They are guarding the boundary between what is real and what merely looks real. And that boundary, it turns out, is where an enormous amount of the modern internet quietly lives. If this is the kind of thing you find yourself thinking about, the quiet machinery under the everyday internet, then this channel is your sort of place. There is no product to sell you here. It is just the systems, taken apart and explained by someone who has spent a long time on the inside of them. Subscribe and follow the rabbit hole. Next time we are going to pull all the way back to the strange question sitting under all of this. An internet where the traffic can be faked, the content can be generated, the reviews can be bought, and even the humans can be manufactured. And yet somehow the whole thing still holds together. We are going to look at the quiet, invisible system of trust that decides, moment to moment, what counts as real at all, and what begins to happen when it starts to strain.